Good morning.
Good morning, Supervisor Vargas.
Good morning.
Good morning. I will now call the December 14th, 2021 County of San Diego Board of Supervisors, Flood Control District, Housing Authority, In-Home Supportive Services, Public Authority, Sanitation District, San Diego County Fire Protection District, successor agency to the County of San Diego Redevelopment Agency special meeting to order. I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Before I call the roll, I would like to note for the record that all supervisors are participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by roll call vote. With that, I'll now call the roll. Supervisor Anderson?
Here.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Here.
Supervisor Desmond? Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas here.
And Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher here. We only have one item for discussion today, authorized continuance of teleconference public meetings. I'll ask the clerk to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Since March 2020, the board and its associated commissions, governing bodies, and advisory boards have conducted meetings remotely or have a mixed attendance of in-person and remote board members in accordance with previous executive orders issued by the governor. In September of this year, Assembly Bill 361 became law and allows local agencies subject to the Brown Act to continue remote attendance for meetings under simplified procedures. Under AB 361, the Board of Supervisors must adopt a resolution every 30 days to continue the use of simplified procedures for teleconference board meetings. The board last adopted a resolution on November 16, 2021. The board's next meeting is not until January 11, 2022. Therefore, the special meeting is held to meet the statutory requirements of AB 361. This is the only item on the agenda, as you noted, for the board's consideration today. The recommendation is to adopt a resolution entitled Resolution Authorizing Continuance of Teleconference Public Meetings pursuant to Government Code Section 54953. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Why don't we hear from our public speakers first, and then we'll go to board members.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 14 requests to speak by phone. I'll also note for the record that we received 84 e-comments on this item, 1 in favor and 80 in opposition. Any members of the public that requested to speak by phone on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. When it is your turn to speak, you will be unmuted and you will hear a recording that will tell you to begin your comments after the beep. I'll remind the callers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. We'll begin with our first caller, and again, we'll ask you to please state your name before beginning your comments.
Robert Wellstan. I urge a no vote on number 1. Referring to county HHSA data, the link provided in my comments online for cases of COVID by date of illness onset. You'll note there are 3 distinctive peaks. The largest was the Epsilon variant originating in Southern California in January of this year. The second largest peak is Delta. It peaked in August of this year. It's still running its course. In all this time, COVID has never once overwhelmed the county medical system. What's changed so why the withdrawal from public meetings again? In the last year, you've had 75% of the county vaccinated, and more than 12% have natural immunity, although that is likely underreported, likely 30%. There is no medical emergency any longer. Either this is a shameless admission that the vaccine program does nothing to protect public health, or it reveals the real agenda is to prevent public participation in government. Again, I urge no on number 1. And since you have an additional month before your next meeting, why don't you wait to see what happens in playing out over this Omicron variant over the next month to see if this is really a variant of concern or if it's a variant not of concern for us before you prevent the public from attending in person again. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from our next caller.
Mary here. Well, I just want to say it must be nice to just have one thing on the agenda for a couple of reasons. First, there is no other issue to take out of order and make us wait as you have been so prone to doing. Secondly, we might actually hope for the full attention of all the board members for this abbreviated session. It is beyond time to end the charade. You absolutely should relinquish your emergency powers that are now going on 22 months today. I want to read from an article dated February 14th, 2020 from a local news station. Quote, "Let us be clear, this does not mean there is any increased risk to the general public. In fact, it is quite the opposite," County Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten said. And another quote, "Fletcher said the local emergency declaration took effect immediately and lasts for 7 days. That was February 14th of 2020, almost 2 years ago. My favorite definition of tyranny is this: when a government takes your freedoms and attempts to only return them to you as privileges. It is time to declare the disease endemic, something we will simply live with like influenza. No to AB 361 teleconferencing, which uses the premise of safety as a red herring guise to limit participation and quell our voices." Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from our next caller.
Hi, Michael Waters. Yes, I'd like to return to the in-person meetings. There's absolutely no need for this, for the teleconferencing. The Omicron variant has proven to be completely dead on arrival as far as being a threat to anyone. It's been almost a month now since cases spiked in South Africa, yet the deaths and the hospitalizations in South Africa is completely flatlined, hasn't budged at all. The Omicron variant is the way out of this. It's spreading quickly, and it is absolutely no threat to anyone. Continuing the state of emergency is just a weak attempt to continue to drain funds from the federal government. Counties all over the nation, states are just draining more funds from the federal government's printing press. This is what is spiking the massive inflation that is going on in the country right now. All this money is being flooded out into the economy via county boards of supervisors and state governments all over the country. This is what is spiking the inflation, the creation of the money supply. It's not companies raising the prices. It's the creation of the money supply that your very votes to continue the state of emergency are enabling. Please end the state of emergency. It is going to ruin our monetary system. End the state of emergency now. Let's get back in person. The Omicron variant is dead on arrival as far as being any threat to any human being. Please end the vaccinations of our children. The children were never at risk in this. Absolutely, statistically, zero threat to children in this entire pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the next caller.
Karen V. And I would like to say that I'm a Democrat. I got my citizenship in 2008. I voted for Obama, Hillary, Supervisor Reamer. So I would just like you to know that I'm not some right-wing conservative person. The numbers are in with this Omicron, and it seems like COVID is mutating to a less and less severe disease. And COVID is with us. We have to learn to live with it. And I would ask for open government. It's time to open our government so we can participate in person with the county and also in daily life. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now hear from our next caller.
Hi, yes, my name is Julia. I'm just wondering, why do you continue to go along with this COVID overreaction in California? Just like the Colorado governor said this past weekend, at this point, if you haven't gotten vaccinated, that's your choice and your fault if anything happens. But for you politicians to sit there and chide people or continue to support orders in California conflicts with what politicians and celebrities actually do in the real world. You've got a governor who went to his fancy pants Getty family wedding and then went to Mexico for a week. So clearly, if there was an emergency, he wouldn't be doing those things. He and most likely all of you are actually modeling for us how we should behave. You're the models, guys. Like how we've been living the past 6 months here in at least SoCal. Like there's not an emergency order, so why keep the county under this fake emergency order? To avoid the taxpayers who pay your salaries is obnoxious and unprofessional if any of you have your screens off. What you should be worrying about is where all the thousands of children are going to get their rightful education when they are not allowed to come to school because parents choose not to vaccinate them. And I'm going to hazard a guess. I'm going to assume, since everyone's following the rules here, and by the way, I am vaccinated, have all of you had your 3 Hep A shots? Have all of you had your 3 Hep B shots? Do you keep your Tdap booster up to date? And if you've had chickenpox, if you haven't had chickenpox, you should make sure to get that shot too, even if you have the titers or the immunity, because we don't believe in natural immunity anymore. And I did get vaccinated, and I got COVID 5 months later because that's pretty much how long the vaccines are working right now. And that's pretty much spot on with what's happening with everyone else in my community. Again, what's the point of masking vaccinated people? What possible risk is a person who is triply vaccinated? What's the point? Clutch your pearls now. One person has done something else.
Thank you. We'll now hear from our next caller.
Diane Ake. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I oppose teleconferencing by the Board of Supervisors. it has been a way for some of the supervisors to avoid listening to public comment. We can't tell if they're listening to us, and it shows a false emergency when there is no emergency. There's been no COVID outbreaks from people going to Board of Supervisor meetings over the last number of months. It's been perfectly safe. So I would hope that you would vote against this and realize that there is no emergency and stop pretending there is emergency and using it for some sort of reason that is kind of hard to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair Fletcher, we're not seeing any additional callers in the queue. That will conclude public comment on this item. Chair Fletcher, that concludes public comment on this item. And I see Supervisor Lawson-Remer has her hand raised.
All right, thank you. We will go to Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
First of all, I just I want to comment. I think that I appreciate a lot of the commenters, frankly, significantly more reasonable feedback, and I think it's really helpful. We're all very committed to open government. I'm really proud of the work that my colleagues, Supervisor Anderson and Supervisor Vargas, are doing on our transparency subcommittee. And I think since taking office, this has been one of my top priorities. We're also very committed to making sure that we're modeling the kind of behavior we need in California so that we don't see another spike in COVID, and so that we can continue seeing improvements in our trend lines, and that we can continue making progress in getting back to normal. When I look at the choice in front of us, we have Omicron. We don't really know what's going to happen with that. We have a mask mandate that's just been implemented by the state to get us through the holidays. And I think it's wise and advisable, especially in the face of Omicron, to continue taking maximum precautions and revisit this question back to full in-person meetings in a month or so once we get past this Omicron wave.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Lawson-Remer. Let me ask my colleagues if they have any additional comments. I just want to just to add on to that. I think we were one of the first government entities to come back to in-person meetings. One of the few to maintain that throughout the duration of what we've experienced from June of last year and until the present. This is an item that we have taken up pretty much every month, every 30 days since we reopened, which just preserves the option for supervisors to join virtually or remotely. It does not require us to do it. It just gives us the option to do that. And I think Supervisor Lawson-Remer is right that it's an appropriate step for us to take. We don't know what the conditions over the next 30 days will look like. And we're going to continue to have public meetings, continue to have public comment, continue to give the public a chance to weigh in on what we're doing. Whether that be in person, as we've been doing almost exclusively, or whether we go virtual for a short time. But I know all of our goal is to be in person and be in person as much as it is practically possible and safe given the conditions we face. And we'll certainly continue to strive for that. With that, I'll make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second by Vice Chair Vargas. We'll go to Supervisor Desmond.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Even though I'm not in favor of keeping the emergency open, I do think we're past the emergency. And in light of yesterday's mask mandate for a month, I think it's prudent that we keep our options open for the meeting. So I'll be supporting.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, last two votes on this, I voted against it. But with the governor's order masking, I feel compelled to vote for it for the next 30 days. So I want to make sure for those that are confused why I voted against it, now I'm voting for it. It's because of the change in the mask or mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'm not seeing any additional comments or requests to speak. We have a motion by myself, a second by Vice Chair Vargas. I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer,
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond,
Sorry. Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas,
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher.
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
That concludes the business before the board today. I thank everyone for their attendance and wishing everyone a wonderful holiday season. Please stay safe. Thank you.
The next regular meeting of the board will take place on Tuesday, January 11th, 2022 at 9 a.m.
With that, we stand adjourned.